So, as a millennial, I never miss an opportunity to take a little shot, a little jab at Gen Z. Now, to me, from my millennial perspective, it doesn't feel like Gen Z graduates are really that excited about working a 9 to 5 or working in general, but there has to be some that do want to excel, that do want to fulfill their potential. And we want to give them all the tips and the tools to do just that. It's graduation season, of course. So, a perfect time to have this discussion. Joining me now is the expert on the topic, Liz Bentley Associates founder, Liz Bentley herself. All right, Liz, it's graduation season. Right off the top, you got to give me your number one piece of advice to those that are crossing the stage, getting that diploma. They actually want to work. What do you tell them?
First, I love the idea of the older generation beating on the younger one. That is tradition. There always has to be a little bit of hazing. And yes, the Gen Zs, they're graduating and they've got a tough job market in front of them. A lot of companies are not hiring as many people as they did previously, and there's a lot of economic uncertainty that is making them slow down. So, number one piece of advice, as you said, is first, you've got to be hungry. You're really going to have a lot of grit this year and really dig deep to make this happen. So lower some of your standards, which means you might not be getting the pay you were hoping for. Also, have some versatility. You might have been thinking you were going to go into the government work, and that might not be working out for you right now with all of the layoffs. So really be willing to reconsider different careers and majors depending on what your choices are, and make sure your resume and your interview skills are top-notch shape.
I want to get into those skills because I really want your insight. But go into that first point there about maybe lowering your standards, your expectations, your what I would call maybe an entitlement list. So I've been hearing a lot, and I've just been having open-ended questions on social media asking people, like, what's it like to work with someone that's Gen Z? Or, what's the biggest takeaway you have if you're, an older generation working with a Gen Z? And the number one response is they don't want to work. And by not wanting to work, they want to get a paycheck. They want to be employed. They don't want to work. They don't want to come to work. So they walk in the door with a diploma from whatever university and they say, okay, I only want to work in the office 1 day a week, and I want all the unlimited PTO, and I want a work-life balance, and I want to be able to bring my dog to work, and I want to be able to color at lunchtime. And it feels like they have a lot of demands walking in the door. Well, right now, from what you're telling me, now is not the time maybe to come in with a laundry list of demands for your employer.
I would agree with that. I think you're going to have a very short career if that's what your thinking is. And if you're employed right now and you're having those long list of demands, I'd say that's a danger as well. So this is not a time for employees to feel like they have the power. We've seen a big shift that's happened in 2025 where the power dynamic has shifted from employee to employer. And, that's not really necessarily a great thing, but it is what's happening because of just, again, the financial insecurity of a lot of companies to unpredictable economic times and a lot of shifts that we've seen since COVID, not to mention all of the advancements with artificial intelligence. So definitely a good time for Gen Zs to buck up, get a lot of grit, as I said, and resilience, and really shift their mindset.
It's always wild to me when I see Gen Z complain about having to go to work and then, their work-life balance, but they have an unlimited amount of time to post TikTok dances. I mean, millennials do it too, God help us, but it's frustrating for me as somebody who started off really wanting to dream big and do big things at a young age, and having, as you said, the hunger and the thirst for it. That's something that you need to have. Feels like a lot of young people, they want to be influencers now. And, listen, there's nothing wrong with being an influencer if it pays the bills, but not everybody's going to be an influencer. We have an abundance of influencers. I want to ask you about, too, you mentioned the shift there. Now, I kind of predicted this. It wasn't hard around the 2020 time when employers were having to beg people to come to work. It's like, we'll give you anything. We'll pay you an unlimited amount of money. We'll do whatever. Please just come to work, because a lot of people were still getting their mailbox money at that point. But then that was going to come to an end at some point. And now the employers, they've got a lot of people that need a job now because they're not getting the stimulus money that they got from COVID. And there's a shift. Now, what are you noticing from employers? What are they looking for in the people they're hiring, whether it be young people, old people, middle-aged people? What do they want?
Well, they want people who are ambitious, flexible, adaptable, because everything is changing around you all the time, and who have a great attitude. They have to have great work ethic. They've got to be able to come in, get the job done, be able to be coachable, listen to feedback, make changes that they want to, that need to be made, and really just be able to be an employee that can grow in the company. I mean, look, they're trying to run a business. They want people who are going to be in there helping move the ball forward, not distracting and pulling away from the overall objectives. So, and they want good people. And when they have good people, they want to reward them, but they just aren't going to tolerate some of the things they've tolerated in the past.
You're right about that one. And also for the people out there who want to get this big salary walking in the door, I tell, young people this all the time. And I say that as somebody who's 32, but I tell younger people this all the time. You might start off with a salary that doesn't seem that exciting to you. You might feel undervalued. But if you work hard in many professions, in many sectors, you can excel quickly. You can stay with that company and you can get yourself to a great position in a small amount of time if you're willing to be a standout employee. But some people, they're like, I want to be this. I want to be promoted in a year. I want to be the CEO. I want to be treated like the CEO. And it's amazing that they have this feeling of themselves. I love the confidence, but it might be a little bit of inflated ego syndrome as well here. Are you noticing that?
Right. Yeah, no question about that. I think that salaries are actually going down, if anything, right now, a lot because of artificial intelligence coming in and being able to take over many jobs. So the value of some of the skills are being eliminated. And not only are we seeing that, but even people with high salaries now, in some cases, are getting priced out of markets. So this is definitely a time to, especially if you're just entering the job market, be more flexible about the salary. You're probably not going to be getting what you were hoping for, and you just got to climb your way to the top. So as you said, you got to work for it, and it will come if you're doing great work, but you have to be willing to put in the time.
Let's talk about some of those interview skills because I think this is really important. A lot of people don't know how to interview. And again, I'm going to take another shot at the young folks. And it's millennials too, I'm going to be honest with you. I talk to so many young people, people my age, millennials, whatever, that they are terrified of talking to someone in person or on the phone. And they've been conditioned to not communicate with people in person or on the phone. And therefore, when they get into an interview setting, they're terrified because they're not used to the one-on-one interaction. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to ask questions. They don't know how to be engaged. They might be great at the job itself, but they don't know how to get through the interview process. So what would you tell folks that maybe are not naturally charismatic? What are your tips that you can give them on how to be a great interviewee?
So, yeah, this is a great point, and interviewing is going to make or break you. And if you get a chance to get to the interview, you really have to practice and take this seriously. So, number one is you need to go through your resume and really be able to speak to it very, very well. And you want to have good anecdotal stories that kind of tells the interviewee who you are. And we always say to people when they're practicing for interviews, know what you want their takeaways to be about you, regardless of the questions that they ask. So have the three big things that you really want them to know about you before before you end the interview. So they really feels like they get to know everything that makes you special. The other thing you should do is look at your resume and make sure you know where the gaps are. Make sure you know what's wrong with it. I've looked at so many resumes in my career that people will give me, and I'll immediately say, well, what happened here or what happened there? And they'll think, how did you know that? And anyone who does a lot of interviewing is immediately going to see where your weaknesses are. So be prepared to talk to that and just know that they're seeing it, that you can't like walk around it. Last but not least, remember to smile. People like people who smile. They want to, it's not just about memorizing all of the information, but smiling. Do your research on the company and, be someone who's somewhat friendly and likable because they want to hire a person that they're going to have fun with and they're going to enjoy working with. And like I said previously, make sure you really do your homework on the company and the person who might be interviewing you.
That's a good tip. So I want to ask you specifically. Now, this is kind of like a funny thing that's become a meme when you're asked, like, what is your biggest weakness? And of course, nobody actually wants to expose their weakness. So they say, oh, it's because I work too hard, or I don't know when to stop working. That probably doesn't work so well because people can see the BS in it. But if you are asked that question, how would you suggest people respond?
Okay, so first, I feel like people are asking those questions slightly less. And I just one thing I'm going to answer that specific question, but I want to put this other tip in, which is that when you get an interview, make sure you put the job description into ChatGPT, because it will spit out really good interview questions for you that were specific to that job, and that will give you a huge advantage. Now, if one of those questions is, what are your weaknesses? Really try to personalize a strength of yours that I call goes south on you. That means something that is typically one of your strengths, but sometimes it works against you. And I think that's a really good way, because we all have that, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're outgoing, maybe sometimes you're too talkative, you don't know when to shut it down. If you're confident, maybe sometimes it, turns into arrogance. If you're detail oriented, sometimes you become a little bit of a micromanager. But find your way of saying it so it feels really natural and honest without making it sound like, wow, I definitely don't want to hire you. So like I said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, how honest should you be? Because I think everybody, like, they want to be genuine and they want to be authentic, but nobody's going to come in there and say, yeah, this is my biggest weakness. I don't show up on time, and I'm probably never going to show up on time, and please hire me. So how honest should one be about their shortcomings?
I think first of all, integrity comes across in interviews. So I think that's helpful. But I don't think you should pick out an example like yours, which would make no one want to hire you. I would pick out a weakness that, again, is really coming from a strength that sometimes doesn't work for you. But it becomes a real weakness. So pick something that's going to be a little more vague about it, but still feels honest. Because I think also if you phone it in and you're really fake about the answer, then that also is undesirable. But to your point, you don't want to say, I'm never on time and I'm never going to be on time. That would be a bad decision.
Yeah. Well, some people are pretty brazen these days, so nothing surprises me anymore on that front. So what about that when they also usually in an interview, and it's been a long time since I've done an interview, but when they say something like, do you have any questions for me? That's a big one that I see on social media of people trying to give tips and tricks on that question. It's like, do you dazzle them with the research that you've done? Some people are saying you should ask about like the PTO or the vacation time, which to me, that seems very Gen Z, because that's the last thing that I'd be asking as a millennial. But what should you say in that situation?
Okay, I would definitely not ask about PTO or vacation time. I agree with you.
Well, you know that they do, Liz. That's like their number one question.
Yes. Well, that will definitely not land you the jobs that are out there right now that are dwindling. So definitely don't do that. And that's something not to do. I do think it's good to ask questions, but I think it's nice to ask questions maybe about the interviewer's own career experience or trajectory. It could be questions about the industry, questions about the culture inside the company, questions about the team. You maybe could ask about upward mobility, but even that could be a little bit pushy. I think it's just probably more about, how the person there, like what has been their career path. I think interviewers sometimes like to talk about themselves, and also you can learn a lot. But again, I would stay genuine about learning about the career you might be going into here.
Should you look up the person that's interviewing you and then say something creepy about something that you've learned by looking at their social media? Like, hey, I see that you're a this and this sports fan or whatever. Is that endearing or is that creepy?
It may be more later into the interviews versus on the first one, unless it's something that you, feel like in the interview, it's going really well and it's going to make sense, and it really connects back to you. So on that note too, I really like it when people put somewhere on their, like in the bottom of their resume, personal touches, like I like hiking, or I'm, whatever, I'm a foodie, or anything that's like I speak French, things that make personalize their resume, because I do think interviewers will ask about that. And I think it'd be really nice.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk to you about social media. So when I was starting my career at the age of 21, social media was obviously a thing. We had Facebook, we had the Instagram, we had all of that, but it was like still fairly new. But now kids grow up with the Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and they're posting a lot of videos, and that seems to be their number one priority, is posting videos and selfies and this, that, and the other. And employers are looking at that. Like, that's probably their litmus test for everything is they go and they look on your social media. If you think you're private, newsflash for you, nobody's private online. I don't care if your profile is private. I'm sorry to tell you, people are going to find your stuff. So, what would you say to both young men and to young women about the content that they have on their personal social media? Because there are some, especially young women, that'll tell you, like, this is me and I want to wear this outfit and I'm posting it on my personal social media. But how
Mhm.
much do employers look at that? And do you think that there's a line that perhaps you should fall under?
No question. In case I'm not clear here, no question. First of all, Google yourself and see what comes up. Second of all, there
Well,
are
see, that's not
absolutely,
always fair because if I Google myself, they're going to say some really horrible things about me, Liz.
yeah.
So in my case, Googling myself is just what I do if I want to get, my ego dumped on. But for
Yeah, but
others that
you
don't
already
exist in
have a
the public
job.
life, yes, okay.
But you already have a job, and we're talking about people coming out of college and getting jobs. So that's different. I'm saying they should be looking at what in their, assuming that we're talking about people just getting jobs and just starting this market, they should know what people are talking about. If you were going for a job and you Googled yourself, you'd want to know what people were seeing before you got into that interview, right? So even at your level, you would still want to be able to talk to it in case you had to, but now you're at a different place. So for them, yes, they should Google themselves. They should know what's out there. They should absolutely be taking down pictures that are not appropriate. They should be getting a little bit over this is who I am, because there's a lot of people from different generations, different backgrounds, different experiences looking at those pictures. And it's something they have to be really careful about. No question about it. So yes, I think they have to really look at that.
Yeah, it's crazy what people are willing to put out there about themselves. Okay, last thing I do want to ask you, we've talked a lot about AI. Now,
Okay.
for me, I'll be honest with you. When I hear that AI is taking over people's jobs, I can understand it in certain areas. And I know that a lot of people that are artistic or they're writers or this, they're very concerned that Chat GPT and all that's going to take over. I'll be honest with you, the couple of times that I've used Chat GPT and I've just asked it about myself, it got absolutely everything wrong about me. So I'm like, how can this possibly take over my job when it can't even get basic facts about, me who's a public figure correct? But I'm very well aware that AI is obviously advancing. It's not going
Mhm.
anywhere. People are
Right.
worried about it taking over their job, their career, no matter what sector they're going into. What is your best advice to help, be competitive even in this new world of AI?
Well, first, the AI is going to keep getting better and they're going to keep adjusting it and perfecting it. And just like everything, when any first technology comes out, it's never as strong at the beginning and it builds momentum. And it's being used pretty widely. I think that it's reducing jobs. In some case, eventually it will probably take over lots of jobs. I mean, listen, we used to, at one point, we couldn't imagine not having a toll booth worker. Now we can't imagine it, right? So life is going to keep changing, and what we have to do is be able to change with it and be adaptable. So even if ChatGPT isn't something you use now and think has the value it could, it will eventually, right? So the key is really to be growing and shifting with the times and constantly adapting yourself. That's really always going to be the answer. And what I see people doing now the most is that it's changing maybe the number of employees they need. Like I just was reading about a consulting firm that was able to hire 5 22-year-olds with ChatGPT to do the work of 20. So
Wow.
instead of 20 people, it's 5, right? And some industries will shift quicker than others. Depends on how a lot of the technology is built.
Yeah, and my unsolicited advice on that was to your earlier point, be likable, be someone that people
Yeah,
like to have around. Because if
yeah,
you are enhancing the workplace culture, AI can't do that. That's the one human quality that we will always retain. And I know they say that the robots are going to learn how to be human and all this, but like at the end of the day, they can be unplugged, we hope. So be a likable person that people like to be around, be somebody who's ambitious, be somebody that goes the extra mile, be somebody that's willing to maybe
yeah.
answer a text outside of the normal work hours. I understand this work life balance thing that a lot of young people have now, but I'm going to be honest with them. If you want to be in a position where you're making the big bucks, you're going to have to answer texts outside of your normal 9 to 5 window. And it's
Yeah.
mind blowing to me that there are some people that think that work life balance means that they clock in, they clock out, and they're going to do no extra. Do those people end up staying at a lower level? I'm asking a rhetorical question, but I'd like you to just emphasize it.
Well, I agree with everything you're saying. And I do think people are going to get, first of all, rhetoric at lower levels might become eliminated. So I think people are going to have to really continue to grow themselves, shift. Being likable will help, for certain. And I think we have to take it one day at a time. It's like we can't we can't predict what's going to be here in 5 years. So really just adjusting yourself to where we are right now and arriving at being the best version of yourself right now, and then do it again tomorrow and again a month from now and again a year from now. And if you keep doing that, you will keep the pace versus, saying, well, in 5 years, it could be this, or it's not happening, because it is happening. That's for sure.
Yeah, buckle up, buttercups, because you're not in the driver's seat anymore, but take the bull by the horns and you will be rewarded. That is always my message. Thank you so much for all of your tips and all of your tricks. It's graduation season. A lot of people need to hear your advice. Thank you so much, Liz, for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Great to be here.
Of course. All right, folks, that does it for this very special Get to Work episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. I'll see you, of course, back here Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern on Outkick.com. You can always watch the show on Fox Nation as well. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.